This is Pressers by FedNet, where news conferences from the United States Congress become podcast episodes for your listening on your time. House Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar and Vice Chair Ted Lieu were joined by Caucus National Security Task Force co-chairs Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, and Derek Tran at their weekly news conference on June 24th. They discussed constitutional concerns about an attack on Iranian nuclear enrichment sites days earlier, budget reconciliation, and more. The following material is protected by copyright.
Good afternoon. Members, today we're supposed to receive a classified briefing from the Trump administration, but clearly the chaos and the confusion coming out of the White House made that impossible. It is completely unacceptable that Congress has not been briefed on this in a timely fashion. We need evidence, we need details, and we need to know them now. There are a number of outstanding questions, including whether this attack achieved the administration's stated goals. Launching an attack without congressional authorization is wrong. Launching a potentially unsuccessful attack without congressional authorization would be an administration-defining failure. And this is a defining week for the Trump presidency. He has asked Republicans to put the unpopular One Big Ugly Bill on his desk by July 4th so that he can celebrate Independence Day by throwing 16 million people off of their health insurance to pay for billionaire tax breaks that explode the deficit by over $3 trillion. And now he's putting American troops in harm's way in the Middle East after promising that he'd restore peace. The American people want a steady hand at the wheel and to fight back. I'm proud to launch the House Democratic Caucus National Security Task Force, co-chaired by Representatives Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, and Derek Tran. And we want to thank co-chair Mikey Sherrill, who can't be with us here today. The members leading this task force will draw on their patriotism, expertise, and commitment to service by providing the leadership that Donald Trump and the rubber stamp Republicans lack the courage and moral clarity to deliver. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I'm pleased we're joined today by veterans Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, and Derek Tran. Like Chairman Aguilar said, it is completely unacceptable that the administration is unwilling to brief the House of Representatives on the strikes in Iran. It has been a long-standing bipartisan goal of both Democratic and Republican administrations to prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. The Iranian regime is a theocratic, autocratic regime. If they had nuclear weapons, they could launch them at U.S. bases, U.S. military interests, and at Israel. And we have to make sure this regime never acquires a nuclear weapon. At the same time, I believe the Constitution means what it says. Only Congress has the power to declare war. I publicly stated at the time that Obama needed congressional authorization to strike Syria. I believe Trump needs congressional authorization to strike Iran. My view of the Constitution does not change based on what party the president happens to belong to. Now, there's some other news that happened today, including that consumer sentiment declined again. And what we know is that the economic policies of Donald Trump and the Republicans are harming Americans, and the American people know it. Inflation has increased. Grocery prices have increased. People are having difficulty making ends meet. And now we have this huge, big, ugly bill that's going to cut health care for millions and millions of Americans in service of tax breaks for billionaires. We asked the Republican Senate and House Republicans to vote no. And with that, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce Representative Jason Crow, who served our country in combat prior to joining Congress.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar, Vice Chairman Lieu, and my fellow co-chairs of the House Democratic National Security Task Force, Derek Tran and Maggie Goodlander. I'm Jason Crow from Colorado. And even though I'm a member of Congress now, I view this issue, like many national security issues, more through my eyes as a former Army Ranger and paratrooper and combat veteran than just as a member of Congress. I deployed 3 times to Iraq and Afghanistan in my early and mid-20s. And I know the true costs of war. I know what happens when unaccountable elites in comfortable air-conditioned offices in Washington pound their chests, saber rattle, and then send somebody else to go off and do the tough work. Because it's people that I grew up with, working class kids from around the country and from the middle of the country, from small towns that people in Washington don't pay attention to, that have to go out and carry out that tough talk. So I take it pretty personally when an elite like Donald Trump makes a cavalier decision without thought, without engagement with Congress, to potentially pull us in to another long-term, endless conflict in the Middle East. Because don't get us wrong, there is no appetite in America for the United States to be pulled in to another decades-long conflict in the Middle East. So there's a lot of talk about Congress and why Congress should be involved. A lot of discussion about the Constitution, a lot of discussion about war powers, and I just want to talk about why that should matter to Americans. You know, of course the Constitution matters, and of course obeying the rule of law matters. But let's drill down into that for just one moment. We spent 20 years in $3 trillion and over 6,000 American troop lives fighting wars in Afghanistan and Iraq that should have ended much, much sooner and been far less costly than they were. How did that happen? Well, it happened in large part because there was just one vote. The entirety of those wars, one vote in one formal debate in Congress. And then, out of sight, out of mind. Congress is an essential part of this. That is what the framers of the Constitution envisioned. That the people closest to the American people, they have to go home every weekend and stand in high school auditoriums, in gyms, in Rotary clubs, and Friday night fish fries across America, and be held accountable and say why we should spend taxpayer dollars and send our men and women to someplace around the world into conflict, why we should do that, and to be accountable for it in real time. That's why the involvement of Congress matters. Because nobody will ever tell me that things would have been different in Iraq and Afghanistan had we actually had that debate, had we actually pushed that accountability. We know it would have been. So Congress needs to step up. I know the House Democrats are ready to step up. We're already leading to reinsert ourselves into matters of war and peace. It's time for the Republicans to step up too and say enough is enough. We have an independent constitutional obligation to support our military, to support our troops, and to discharge our obligations under the Constitution, regardless of what Donald Trump says. We are not asking them to storm the beaches of Normandy or to give their lives for this country. We are asking them to step up and fulfill their constitutional obligations. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce the intrepid whip of the House Democrats, Catherine Clark from Massachusetts.
Thank you so much, Congressman Crow, and thank you for your service to our country, both your military service and your service, and to all of you. And thank you to our chairman and vice chairman for pulling this together. Our message today is clear. The Constitution is not a document of convenience. It is there to guarantee that there is accountability because it is the people's voice of this country. It is American families who are feeling every day that it is hard to get ahead, who need to be informed of when this country is going to have military strikes and go to war. And that is where representative government comes in. That is the design. That as members of Congress, we are here representing our districts and the voice of the American people. So when we have a president and an administration and now a Republican party in Congress that has decided the American people are not entitled to know anything. It is a trust us, we are doing what we're doing. You are just here to pay the taxes while we debate these things internally without your representatives involved. That is an outrage and an insult to families at home, who at this time, where 60% of American families are feeling they can't provide the basics, while we are debating a GOP bill that wants to take away health care from 16 million Americans, that wants to take away food programs, strip funding from veterans' benefits. The audacity of then coming forward and saying, on top of all that, we feel that you are not entitled to the basic information around our national security and such profound decisions about whether to go to war or not. This is far beyond a briefing and what day it will be held. It is the fact that we have been demanding information on behalf of American families, of American veterans, of those who are in active duty and their families who deserve answers on what our country is committing as far as foreign action and why. Thank you.
Next, co-chair Maggie Goodlander.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to our leadership and to my colleagues who are part of this task force, which I'm really proud to be part of. I represent the Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire here in Congress, and we've got freedom-loving patriots right here on this podium who believe deeply in our mission and our role. And what I'd say is I'm about to turn it over to Derek Tran, who, like my dad, joined the military at age 18. My dad, Ted, always said he got his education in the United States Navy, and so did I. I really did. I served 11 years as an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserve. I learned in the Navy that, and saw firsthand, that the United States of America has brutal and determined enemies all across the world, including in Iran. I saw firsthand how our patriotic service members, when they take an oath to this document, I bring my Constitution with me everywhere I go in this job because it's a useful document to have these days for questions big and small. When they take an oath to this, they mean it. And I also learned in the Navy firsthand why our framers were really smart to give Congress a central role in American national security and in matters of war and peace, because there are no more consequential decisions than can be made. What we see today is an administration that is completely ignoring the role of Congress in matters of war and peace, and it's having real consequences. It's been said. We just came back. I was pounding the pavement all across New Hampshire. I heard from the families of service members who were asking basic questions, questions that this administration should be answering to the American people about why we went ahead and conducted a military strike without congressional authorization, what the impact of that strike was. What damage did it do to Iran's nuclear program and their nuclear industrial base? And what is the plan now? This is why Congress has got a role in questions of war and peace, and why this administration is going to have to answer to us. I'm really proud to be in this effort alongside all of you, and delighted to turn it over to my colleague and Army veteran, I'll allow it, go Navy, Derek Tran.
Thank you so much, Rep. Goodlander. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you especially to my colleagues with whom I am so proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with. I joined the Army Reserves when I was 18 years old. I walked into that recruitment office because I was committed to giving back to the country that has given me so much. My parents fled a communist dictatorship and came to the United States seeking the freedom and democracy that define the core of our national values. I brought that background with me to Congress, and I'm so proud to lend my voice as a leader of the House Democratic Caucus on the National Security Task Force. Just this week, we learned in terrifying detail just how important our voices are at this critical moment. Iran and its proxies pose a serious threat to our nation, and American people are looking for measured, steady leadership to protect our national security. They're not seeing it from President Trump. They're not seeing it from congressional Republicans who refuse to hold this president accountable. I am proud to stand with my colleagues today to urge a stronger, more stable approach to our national security. We are committed to keeping our service members safe. We are committed to protecting U.S. global leadership, and we don't want our country dragged into another reckless war. It is critical that we exhaust all diplomatic options to de-escalate this conflict because we do not want more of our soldiers put in harm's way. The United States has been the sole global superpower for decades, not only because of our military might, but because of our values, our adherence to the Constitution, and our respect to the rule of law. We're here today because we refuse to stand by while this legacy is under threat. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it back to our chairman for questions.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, colleagues. Questions?
Congressman Al Green's impeachment resolution is coming up on the floor. Do you expect Democratic leadership to vote to table it?
I anticipate that Democrats will vote to table this, and I'll be among them voting to table it, yeah.
You mentioned at the top, Chairman, that Donald Trump wants to get the bill on his desk by July 4th so that he can celebrate Independence Day by throwing 16 million people off their health insurance. How will House Democrats, you all have done days of action during recesses, you held press conferences, had different types of events. As this thing gets closer to the Senate taking it up and potentially coming back to the House, what can Americans expect to see from House Democrats as this gets down to the wire on pushing back against the SNAP cuts, the Medicaid cuts, within the context of this Iran-Israel conflict? You all are balancing a lot of different kind of walking and chewing gum at the same time. What can folks expect in this fight against the bill as it comes back?
All of this is, as my colleague said, all of this is about the American people. You know, their safety and security is front of mind, whether it's keeping them out of harm's way and protecting their national security or looking out for their health and safety. All of that fits within the same theme, and that is the focus of House Democrats, is how do we make lives better for folks in our community. But we're not going to be distracted. We're not going to take our eye off the ball. The Senate is going to do whatever the Senate has to do, but we know that this bill is coming back at some point. We can't control when that happens, but as we get closer to that, we will use our voices and we will be very clear with the American public, guided by, and this shocks our Republican colleagues, guided by the facts, guided by the CBO saying this is going to kick 16 million people off of their health insurance, guided by the nonpartisan analysis that says this is going to put a $4 trillion hole in the deficit. Those are things that House Democrats will continue to amplify. And what that means to folks in our community is this means people are going to lose their health care. This means hospitals are going to close. That's what's at stake, and House Democrats are going to continue to use every tool we can. If we're here over the next intervening days or whatever that holds, we're going to make our voices heard back home and across this country using our voices and getting the word out. Vice Chairman?
So, again, this big, ugly bill is the largest health care cut in U.S. history. And according to the facts, as Chairman Aguilar laid them out, 16 million people are going to lose their health care. And why? Why are we doing this? Tax breaks for billionaires. That's literally what the bill does. And the more the American people find out about the bill, the more they dislike it. Even now, this bill is 21 points under water, a shockingly low result, only matched by Donald Trump's polling approval, which the latest AP poll had him at 21 points underwater, with 60% disapproving of Trump's job performance. So what Trump Republicans are doing is not popular, and the more American people find out, the more they dislike it.
Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the briefing on Iran that was supposed to be this afternoon, could you just walk us through any conversations that you've had with Republican leadership about this briefing and why they say it was canceled, whether there's any plans to hold it on a date in the future?
I don't have anything that isn't public. I read it on X as well, just like everybody else. I assume that this will come up in the next few days, but I find it incredibly frustrating and difficult that we can't get the answers to our questions. Are our service members in harm's way? Was this a successful mission? Where is the enriched uranium? These are all fairly straightforward questions, and Congress deserves answers. This isn't a partisan issue. I hope we get answers to those questions. We have no idea on the timing. Representative Crow?
I think it's really important to underscore that the president, any president, has self-defense authority under Article 2 of the Constitution. But to meet that threshold, you have to show that there was an imminent risk of attack against Americans or U.S. facilities. That's the standard. As a member of the Armed Services Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, I have not seen any evidence leading up to the attack that there was an imminent risk to Americans or to U.S. facilities to meet that threshold. So the administration has to answer for that. And that's why it's really important we get answers quickly, because this is the type of situation that could spin out of control very rapidly.
Just to follow up on Nick's question about the impeachment motion to table today, obviously the Democrats have been very united against pushing back the big, beautiful bill. Several other issues, you have shown a unified force. On issues like this as it relates to impeachment, is it unhelpful for your members to come forward and put an issue on the table like impeachment that divides the caucus?
Members are going to represent their constituents and their communities. Members have gone back home. They've had town halls. They've heard from their constituents. They bring back those ideas and those interests every week. That is the nature of this place. So at this time, at this moment, we are focusing on what this big, ugly bill is going to do. I think anything outside of that is a distraction, because this is the most important thing that we can focus on. And so that's what we plan to do in the next days that we're here, and that's what I expect members to carry forward.
Thank you. So these past couple of days, Democrats have been calling on the White House and Republicans in general to, disclose more information about these strikes. But in terms of the actual policy of the U.S. striking Iran, where does House Democratic leadership stand? What is the official stance? And also, are you guys going to be giving members talking points with regards to the policy itself?
Well, we will lean on our committees of jurisdiction, but also the Democratic Caucus National Security Task Force that you see some of the members behind us. As you saw, the War Powers Resolution introduced by ranking members Meeks, Adam Smith, and Jim Himes. Those are going to be the committees of jurisdiction that guide us on these issues. What I can tell you is, I'd just echo what Representative Crow mentioned. The president has Article 2 authority, but he needs to discuss that with us. If there is an imminent threat to the United States, the Gang of Eight needs to be read in on that. There was not a Gang of Eight meeting prior to this, prior to the bombing. So those are concerns that we have. We respect and can appreciate the separation of powers. We understand that even when the president doesn't respect Article 1, they should know that we respect Article 2. But that still means that there is a process. We need to follow that process and ensure healthy communication, especially when it comes to national security interests that affect our troops abroad. Mike?
On the War Powers question, Mr. Lieu, you mentioned Syria and Obama, and those strikes, of course, happened without explicit congressional approval. Speaker Johnson just a few hours ago ticked off a longer list of examples of Democratic administrations taking similar steps. Doesn't that kind of undermine your argument that, hey, look at these big bad Republicans violating the Constitution with these strikes, when Democratic administrations have done similar things in the past?
Yeah. Just because it was wrong then doesn't mean it's not wrong now. The Constitution is the Constitution. and it says only Congress has the power to declare war. And it's been a bipartisan problem with Congress ceding way too much power to the executive branch. And if you look at what J.D. Vance is saying, it's pretty extreme. He's basically saying the president can take action because it deals with nuclear proliferation. Well, if you take that argument, then that would mean any U.S. president could just strike Russia or China or North Korea without congressional approval. That's just insane. And so we're reasserting Congress's role on the Constitution. And again, just read it. It's pretty clear. Only Congress has the power to declare war.
On the AUMF question and the war powers question, listen, if you give somebody a credit card, they're going to use it, right? Well, what's happened is that Congress gave the presidency, Democrat presidents and Republican presidents decades ago, a credit card, but the bill has to be paid by the American people, right? So it's actually Congress's responsibility now to step up and to take it back, right? Because it's been used and abused for too long by too many different people, right? The difference here is that House Democrats take that seriously. We're stepping up to do something about it. And in the absence of leadership by the Republicans who control the House of Representatives and the Senate, once again, House Democrats are stepping up to lead and to make the tough decisions to do the right thing so the American people don't have to foot the bill for reckless misadventures and foreign policy failures. That's the difference. But I think a lot of this discussion around war powers and authorizations for use of military force, let's not forget what we're trying to achieve here. Right? House Democrats know the danger that Iran poses to the world. We know the danger that Iran poses to American troops. I know. I was in Iraq when Iran was training and equipping its militias and blowing up my units and the people that I served with. We understand that it's a state sponsor of terror and one of the more malignant regimes in the world. So we want to do something about it. But we want to do something that is permanent and is verifiable. We understand you cannot bomb your way out of this. It has to be permanent and it has to be verifiable. And that will only be done at a negotiating table when we get back to an agreement similar but different from the one that Donald Trump tore up. You can't bomb your way out of this.
Last question, PK.
I guess to follow up, though, you had Democratic control in 21 and 22, and there was a sort of effort at trying to do some sort of AUMF. It went nowhere. Do you all regret? You've had moments in the past with Democratic presidents where there was an ability to do something and it didn't happen.
What we can handle is what's in front of us today. We can write books and fill your column inches with regrets under this dome. We'll save that for other days. But what is in front of us today is, are we going to stand up for our constitutional authorities? Are we going to protect the role that Congress has here? Are we going to look out for American service members by asking tough questions? That's our role. And like the vice chair said, that should not just be when you disagree with the administration or when you have a different political party from the administration. If we're truly going to do the people's business here, we need to ask those tough questions, and we need to wait till the winds line up and the stars align and we can get something done. That part is unfortunate. Maybe we've missed a few opportunities, but that doesn't mean that we turn a blind eye right now. It doesn't mean that we just let Donald Trump walk all over us. It means that we stand up for our authority and speak up on behalf of our constituents at every opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited.